One of the more fascinating unresolved issues in New Testament textual criticism is how did the nomina sacra, that is, these abbreviations of important names, sacred names, originate? Now, here's some examples of these abbreviations where you would take the first and last letter and throw an overbar over it and so forth. The question is, where do they come from? Why did scribes overnight in the Christian world start using these abbreviations? Now, one of the theories is that because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time these abbreviations impact the big four, that is God, Jesus, Lord, and Christ, that maybe that was birthed out of a Jewish reverence for God's own name. We see that kind of pattern in early Jewish manuscripts. So for instance, in 4Q 120, the tetragrammaton is rendered with Yoda, Alpha, Omega, or Yahoo. Or in 11Q5, instead of writing it out in normal Hebrew script for the time, it is rendered in Paleo-Hebrew. Or in 4Q 175, instead of putting the consonants, they just put ... There's not a consistent pattern, but there's an attempt at revering the divine name. And so one theory is that that type of practice in the manuscripts perhaps influenced early Christians to truncate these special names and render them with the nomina sacra. That only raises another interesting question, which is maybe Jews had come up with that convention themselves. And in the mix comes P Oxy 656 of Genesis. You can see it is written in a nice standard Greek handwriting, but it appears that the scribe who was originally copying Genesis left a space for the divine name to show up, maybe expecting a different scribe to write in the Paleo-Hebrew form or something like that, and a different scribe, maybe a Christian scribe or a Jewish scribe, we don't know, very different handwriting, say, you know what, I don't know how to do that, so I'm just going to write Kyrie there in my own handwriting that is very clearly different. Now, this is not only evidence for some sort of pattern of revering the divine name, but it even shows you that there was an inclination to use Kyrios for the divine name as well. Now, to further muddy the waters is P Oxy 1007, also of Genesis. Now, you can barely make out much of it, but right here we do see Theta Sigma treated as a nomen sacrum, and then right here you can barely make out what appears to be some Paleo-Hebrew letters. At least that's the scholarly consensus. And so it appears that you have a mix of things here. You have a standard Jewish way of rendering the divine name with like a yod, and then you have the contracted form of theos. And so this is factored greatly in the conversation about whether the nomina sacra actually not only came about with Christians imitating the Jewish reverence of the divine name, but maybe even there had already been a Hellenistic Jewish treatment of divine names that way. So P Oxy 1007 is very fascinating in trying to help us piece together this unresolved question.